Title: The Last Bastion of Fire. The stars burned cold, a sprawling field of frozen light stretching out before the crew of the Phoenix. It was a place of endless night, far beyond the reaches of known space. There, humanity stood alone, a pale ember in the vast darkness. The Phoenix, Earth's last starship, was more than a ship. It was the final symbol of humanity's will to survive. And her crew? They were the last hope of a species ravaged by centuries of war and extinction. It had all started with the invasions. For decades, humanity fought back waves of alien forces, beasts that rose from the depths of the void. First, it was the Zion, a race of war-hungry giants that tore apart human colonies with no remorse. Then came the Erythians, an insectoid species that saw the human soul as a prize to be harvested. Each war left Earth and its colonies weaker. Yet, we fought because, deep down, humans knew one thing: they would never be the first to surrender. The humans had learned how to survive in the darkest reaches of space, carving out bastions of fire, places where the light of civilization still burned in defiance. The Phoenix was one such bastion, with its powerful engines and advanced weapons. It was a fortress of flame. The crew, a mix of hardened soldiers, brilliant scientists, and survivors, held together by a single, unbreakable truth: humanity was worth saving. Captain Elise Roderick, the leader of the Phoenix, stood on the bridge, her fingers tracing the map of stars flickering in front of her. The last bastion of fire in the galaxy wasn't just a ship, it was a message to every species that had ever tried to annihilate humanity. It was proof that, even after all the losses, even after the near extinction, humans would rise again. The Phoenix drifted close to the remains of the once proud human colony, Valta Station. Now it was a ruin, a graveyard of floating debris and shattered stations. There was no one left there, no fleet to defend it, no armies to rebuild it, just a cold silence, one that would be felt across the universe. A soft beep echoed across the command room, breaking the silence. Lieutenant Akira Michaels, the ship's navigator, turned to Captain Roderick. "Captain, we've detected incoming ships. They're not from any known alien faction. I'm reading energy signatures. They're human." For a moment, Elise's heart skipped a beat. The ghost of hope whispered in her mind, a dream of comrades, of old allies who had survived. But her mind knew better. She had learned the hard way that hope was a luxury they couldn't afford. "How many?" Elise asked, her voice steady despite the storm rising in her chest. "One ship, but it's a large one. Transmissions are encrypted," Akira replied. "It looks like they've been following our path for days." A message blinked on the screen. The encrypted text was decoded in seconds. Elise's breath caught as the words materialized on the screen. "We are the last remnants. You are not alone. We come to fight." The message had no sender. It was simply there. Elise turned to her crew, eyes blazing with renewed fire. "Prepare for immediate action. There are still allies out there, and if they think they can break humanity, they'll have to get through us first." The Phoenix powered up, its engines roaring to life as the crew locked into position. Elise's mind raced. She wasn't sure if this was a trap. She wasn't sure if they were truly alone. But what she did know was this: humanity's fire had not been extinguished, and they were going to light the way for every last survivor in the galaxy. The cold stars shimmered ahead, a reminder of what had been lost, but behind them, the distant shape of a new ship emerged from the shadows, a fleet of fire, not just of soldiers, but of hope. In that instant, Captain Roderick knew, this was the last bastion of fire, and humanity would never again kneel to the darkness. With her crew at her side, she whispered the words that would carry them into the unknown, into the fight for the survival of all humankind. "Let's show them what happens when we refuse to burn out." Title: The Last Bastion of Fire. Resurgence. Years had passed since the Phoenix, the flagship of humanity's last resistance, had encountered the mysterious fleet. The war, long thought lost, was now one of survival and resurgence. The remnants of Earth's scattered colonies had begun to coalesce under one banner. The fire of humanity rekindled in the ashes of war, and at the heart of it all stood the Phoenix and its captain, Elise Roderick. The galaxy was a strange, dangerous place now. Ancient enemies had resurfaced, drawn by the scent of blood and death. The Zion, once the first to invade, were now allies in name only. The Erythians, a constant scourge, had adapted and grown stronger. The unknown human fleet that had answered their call was a wild card, unpredictable and secretive. They were known as the Ember League, a faction of renegade survivors who had scoured the fringes of space, raiding and reclaiming lost human territories. Elise stood in the command center of the Phoenix, looking over the latest fleet reports. Her ship had become a symbol, a fortress of flame that carried the strength of humanity within its hull, but the weight of leadership was heavy. Too many of her people had died, and too many of their worlds had burned. "Captain, you need to see this," Lieutenant Akira Michaels said, her voice tense. Elise followed Akira to the communications terminal. The screen displayed a live transmission, encrypted, but with clear human signatures. The sender was not one of their allies, but a new, foreign presence, a faction known only as the Vanguards. "Who are they?" Elise asked, her curiosity piqued. "They're claiming to be from a lost fleet, an ancient fleet of Earth's past," Akira explained. "They say they've been in hiding for centuries, waiting for the right time to return. They've got technology we've never seen." Elise studied the screen as the message began to play. "To the last of the humans in the galaxy, we are the vanguards of Earth. We survived the fall of the old world, and now we return to reclaim what is ours. Prepare yourselves, the Age of Fire begins anew." The transmission cut off abruptly. A chill ran down Elise's spine. Ancient fleet. How is that possible? She turned to her crew. "We've heard no mention of this group. If they're telling the truth, they might be the missing piece in this war, but if they're lying, we may be facing an entirely new threat." Akira stepped forward. "We need to investigate. If they're truly human, they may know something we don't. If they're enemies, we need to prepare for war." Elise nodded. "Set a course for the coordinates in the message, and alert the Ember League. If these vanguards are real, we need to stand together." The Phoenix's engines roared to life once more, and the crew braced for what lay ahead. The last bastion of fire was no longer a solitary force. The galaxy was shifting, and humanity was beginning to stir from its long, painful slumber. As the ship moved into deep space, Elise couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was approaching. If the vanguards were truly who they said they were, humanity's fate could change forever. "Captain," Akira said, breaking her thoughts, "incoming signal, it's from the Ember League." "Patch it through." The screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared, Commander Ileana Voss, leader of the Ember League. She was a seasoned fighter, her eyes hardened by countless battles. "Captain Roderick," Ileana said, her voice urgent, "we've received the same transmission, but I don't trust these vanguards. They're asking for a meeting, but their terms are vague. My people are ready to fight if it comes to that." Elise's mind raced. "We don't have time for doubts. Humanity has been scattered for too long. This is our chance to unite, but we must go in prepared. Keep your fleet on standby, Ileana. If they try anything, we'll be ready." The transmission ended, and Elise turned back to the view of the stars. In the distance, the unknown fleet loomed, dark and mysterious, a potential ally or an insurmountable threat. The Phoenix approached the coordinates, the atmosphere tense with anticipation. As they neared the signal's origin, the once cold, dark void began to shimmer with a faint, unfamiliar glow. A massive ship, far larger than anything humanity had built before, came into view. It was a hulking structure, adorned with symbols of Earth's lost past, symbols Elise recognized from ancient history. It was beautiful in its destruction, worn and scarred from years of isolation. The vanguards had arrived. But as the Phoenix closed the distance, the entire fleet's sensors began to blink with warning signs. A low hum vibrated through the hull. "Captain, something's wrong," Akira said. "Their ship, it's powering up. They're not just sending a greeting, they're preparing for something." Elise's heart raced as she realized the truth. The vanguards weren't here to unite humanity, they had come to claim it, and they weren't asking for permission. "Battle stations," Elise commanded, "prepare for anything. This is no longer a negotiation, this is war." As the first shots of a new galactic conflict rang out, the Phoenix and its allies braced for what was to come. The last bastion of fire had not only survived the void, it had become its blazing heart. Title: The Last Bastion of Fire, Ascension. The war with the vanguards had begun. What was once a flickering hope for humanity's resurgence had transformed into an all-out battle for survival. Captain Elise Roderick had known that the galaxy would never be the same again, but she hadn't anticipated how quickly it would all spiral into chaos. The vanguards, powerful and enigmatic, were not the allies they claimed to be. They were conquerors, and humanity was their prey. The Phoenix had narrowly escaped the first attack, but it came at a terrible cost. The Ember League had sustained heavy losses. The mysterious, massive Vanguard ship had unleashed its weaponry, an electromagnetic pulse that disabled entire fleets in an instant, leaving them vulnerable to an overwhelming assault. Now, the human remnants, scattered across their last bastions, were forced to regroup. Earth's legacy was hanging by a thread. Captain Roderick stood at the helm of the Phoenix, her eyes narrowing as she observed the remnants of the Vanguard fleet retreating, as though they were testing their strength, waiting for a moment of weakness. "We can't let them keep us on the defensive," Elise muttered. "We need to take the fight to them." Lieutenant Akira Michaels stepped forward. "We can't risk another direct engagement. We lost too many ships last time. But there's something else. The Vanguard fleet's central command is still intact. If we can disrupt their leadership, we may be able to force them into a retreat." "I'm listening," Elise said, already forming a plan. Akira activated the holo map, displaying the coordinates of the Vanguard fleet's central command, hidden within the massive asteroid field near the planet Viridian. It was a seemingly impenetrable fortress, surrounded by fleets of Vanguard ships. "We infiltrate, a small strike force, will take down their command from within. If we break their leadership, we might cause enough chaos to fracture their forces," Akira suggested. Elise hesitated for a moment, her mind weighing the risks. "How many will we need to get in and out undetected?" Akira's expression was grim. "No more than 10, and they'll have to be the best." Captain Roderick turned to her crew, her heart heavy with the burden of leadership. "Then we'll need a team of the best. Prepare the Phoenix for a covert strike. I'll handpick the team myself." The following hours were a blur of preparation, tension, and resolve. The Phoenix would serve as the distraction, drawing Vanguard attention while the strike team infiltrated the asteroid base. The mission was dangerous, and the odds were slim, but the fire of humanity still burned bright. It was their last chance at striking a decisive blow before the Vanguards fully took control. As the team boarded the stealth shuttle, Elise surveyed the group. It was a mix of soldiers, engineers, and operatives, each handpicked for their skill and their resolve. Among them was Akira, the ever-reliable lieutenant who had become more than a colleague, but a friend. "We'll make it through this," Akira said quietly, sensing the weight of her leader's thoughts. Elise gave a tight-lipped nod, her gaze hard. "We will make it through. This is our shot." The shuttle launched from the Phoenix, slipping silently through the vast void, avoiding detection with its cloaking systems. It glided toward the asteroid field, a silent predator stalking its prey. Inside the Vanguard fortress, tension was high. The elite command council of the Vanguards had gathered in the central chamber, discussing the next phase of their conquest. It was then that the small team of humans infiltrated the perimeter, using the shadows and the ship's advanced cloaking devices to slip past the Vanguard sentries. The inside of the base was a labyrinth of metallic corridors, dimly lit and eerily quiet. The team moved swiftly, their objective clear: reach the command center, neutralize the leadership, and destroy the communications array. They had to prevent the Vanguards from coordinating their forces. If they succeeded, it would cripple the entire invasion. "We're almost there," Sergeant Gabriel Lee whispered into his comm device, his voice steady despite the tension. Elise led the way, her hand gripping the cold metal of her weapon. "Stay focused, we're going to send them a message they'll never forget." They breached the command center just as the Vanguard leaders gathered, unaware of their presence. The team quickly subdued the guards and neutralized the central command, taking down the main leaders with surgical precision. However, as Elise prepared to plant the explosive charges that would bring the whole base down, a soft alarm echoed through the command center. A voice boomed from the overhead speakers. "Warning, intruders detected, locking down all escape routes. Get to the shuttle, now," Elise ordered. The team scrambled, moving quickly through the complex, but the alarm signaled the Vanguard forces were closing in. They had been discovered. Explosions rattled the corridors as the base began to go into full lockdown, and the only exit was now swarming with soldiers. The humans fought with every ounce of strength they had, holding their ground in desperate firefights as they moved toward their shuttle, but the vanguard forces were numerous, and the clock was ticking. As the final member of the team, Sergeant Lee, held off the advancing vanguard soldiers, Elise made a split-second decision. She rushed forward, planting the last explosive charge herself on the central communications array. The base shuddered as the explosion tore through the core of the fortress. "Everyone, now," Elise shouted into her comm, her voice cutting through the chaos. They made it back to the shuttle, just as the asteroid base erupted in a fiery explosion. The shock waves sent them careening through space, barely escaping the destruction. As the team watched from the shuttle's windows, the debris of the Vanguard fortress scattered across the void, a testament to their defiance. Elise exhaled slowly, a rare moment of relief flooding her. The Vanguard command is shattered, they're lost without their leaders. We've bought humanity precious time. As the Phoenix and its allies regrouped, they realized the war was far from over. The vanguards would retaliate, but they now faced a fractured, weakened force. The fire of humanity, once a flickering ember, had now blazed into an inferno. The galaxy was still theirs to reclaim, humanity was still alive, and still fighting. Title: The Last Bastion of Fire, Reckoning. The war with the vanguards had fractured the galaxy, but humanity was still alive, still burning with the fire of defiance. The Phoenix, now more than just a ship, had become the symbol of that fire, of humanity's refusal to be extinguished, no matter the odds. Captain Elise Roderick and her crew had dealt the vanguards a crippling blow, but their victory was short-lived. The galaxy, once vast and full of life, now lay in ruins, a fractured shell of its former self. As the months passed after the destruction of the Vanguard command base, a fragile peace had settled over the human bastions, but the vanguards were not ones to admit defeat. They had retreated into the shadows, regrouping and rebuilding their forces for the inevitable retaliation. Humanity had no choice but to prepare for the storm that was surely coming. Elise stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, her eyes fixed on the hollow map before her. The image of a shattered galaxy stretched out across the stars, a swirling mass of decimated colonies and scattered fleets. The human survivors were isolated in their last strongholds, each bastion more desperate than the last. The vanguard threat still loomed large, and it was clear that the time for hiding was over. "We can't keep running forever," Lieutenant Akira Michaels said, stepping up beside Elise. "They'll find us eventually. It's time to finish this." Elise's voice was steady, but the weight of the decision pressed heavily on her. "I know, but we're not ready, not yet. We need more time to unite our people, to consolidate our forces. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, we're fighting for the future of humanity. We've been fighting for that every day since the first invasion," Akira replied. "It's time we gave the galaxy something to fear, something to remember." Elise nodded slowly, turning away from the holomap to look out at the vast expanse of space beyond. Her crew had fought and bled for this moment. They had sacrificed everything to give humanity a chance, and now, that chance was slipping away unless they could deliver a blow that would shake the vanguards to their core. "We can't wait for the vanguard to strike first," Elise said, her voice resolute. "We take the fight to them, on our terms. We find their new stronghold, and we strike before they can rebuild." The crew sprang into action, their purpose clear. The Phoenix was once again ready to plunge into the depths of space, to carry the torch of humanity into the heart of the enemy's domain. But this time, they weren't just going to fight for survival. This time, they were going to make the vanguards pay for every life they had taken. After weeks of reconnaissance, the Phoenix discovered the location of the vanguard's new flagship, an imposing fortress that was said to be nearly indestructible. It was situated on a massive, ancient moon in the heart of the shattered remains of an old galaxy. The vanguard had taken refuge there, hoping to rebuild and strengthen their forces out of the reach of humanity's vengeance. Elise's plan was simple but bold. She would lead a coalition of human fleets, including the remnants of the Ember League, in a final push to destroy the Vanguard fortress. They would strike with everything they had, no more hiding, no more running. But as the Phoenix and its fleet neared the enemy stronghold, something unexpected happened. The Vanguard fleet, seemingly waiting for them, deployed from hidden stations and ambush points across the shattered system. A trap, a deadly trap. The vanguard had been prepared. Elise's worst fears had come true. The enemy was waiting for them to make their move. The Phoenix's sensors blared as dozens of vanguard warships emerged from the shadows, surrounding the human fleet in a tight formation. "We're surrounded, Captain," Akira said urgently. "There's no way out." "Hold steady," Elise said through gritted teeth. "We're not going anywhere until we make them regret this. Prepare for a full assault. All ships, attack." The battle erupted in a flash of light and fire. The Phoenix led the charge, her guns blazing as she tore into the vanguard ships. The human fleet, though vastly outnumbered, fought with the ferocity of cornered wolves. The vanguards had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. But as the battle raged, Elise realized the true cost of their plan. The vanguard fleet was far more powerful than they had anticipated. The Phoenix took a direct hit from an enemy cruiser, and the ship shook violently, the lights flickering in the control room. The hull groaned as she listed to one side, but Elise's eyes remained locked on the enemy. "We've taken heavy damage, Captain," Akira said. "We're losing shields, engines are failing." Elise's mind raced. They couldn't afford to retreat now. If they did, humanity's last hope would be extinguished. She had to push through. She had to give everything to make sure that the Phoenix would not be the last bastion of fire. "Prepare to board," Elise commanded, her voice firm. "We'll take the fight to them, up close. This ends now." The remaining human fleet shifted positions, drawing the vanguard's attention while the Phoenix launched its boarding shuttles toward the vanguard flagship. With her best soldiers, Elise led the charge, cutting through enemy lines as they fought their way to the heart of the enemy's vessel. The vanguard command center was heavily guarded, but nothing could stop humanity's fury. Elise and her team fought their way through corridors of steel and blood, until they reached the command room. There, the leader of the vanguard stood, waiting. "You think you can defeat us?" the vanguard commander sneered. "We are the future of this galaxy. You are but a fleeting spark." Elise's eyes burned with the intensity of the fire that had carried humanity through centuries of war. "The spark is enough," she said, her voice cold, "and when the fire burns bright enough, it will consume everything." With that, she raised her weapon and fired, silencing the vanguard commander for good. The Phoenix detonated the vanguard flagship's core, setting off a massive chain reaction. As the ship erupted in a blaze of fire, Elise and her crew fought their way back to the shuttle, the explosion sending shockwaves through the surrounding fleet. The battle was over. The vanguard fleet, crippled and leaderless, retreated into the void.